This evening, Justice Education Society launches Strengthening Justice for Women, Girls and Indigenous Peoples in Guyana project. Digicel donates $60 million to the Health Ministry to support autistic children. In Anne's Grove, a father murders his son and sets his wife on fire. In the region, Hurricane Fiona slams Turks and Caicos as death toll rises. And internationally, United Nations General Assembly, Russia's invasion of Ukraine dominates summit. Welcome to another broadcast of Channel 2's Headline News Updates. I am Bibi Bacchus. Thank you for joining us. The residents of Anne's Grove on the east bank of the Marara is in a deep state of shock and mourning after a murder-suicide rocked their tiny village during the early hours of this morning. 21-year-old Sion Bob was fatally chopped, allegedly by his 57-year-old father, Leon Bob, who then wounded his wife, 53-year-old Sharon Bob, before slitting his abdomen. According to one eyewitness, the young man was chopped while he was asleep.
I went out and father and son had a little talking and the mother. And so the father chopped the son, understand, while he was sleeping.
In his sleep,
in his sleep, behind his head. But the chop he get that look like a instant death because he get chopped behind his head.
Behind his head.
Yeah. Two chop he get. The mother get born, chop behind her neck too, and behind her back.
A police report issued stated that the incident occurred around 2:30 a.m. at the residence of the trio, Lot 24 Middle Walk, Anne's Grove. According to information received, 53-year-old Sharon Bob and the now dead suspect, Leon, had an ongoing domestic dispute in which he accused the woman of having extramarital affairs. Persons in the area stated that Leon physically assaulted the woman on several occasions, and their son Leon Bob would intervene during the dispute.
Normally when the father beating the mother, the son is save the mother. So he decided to attack the son first because there's the only option.
Further information received stated that around 2:30 a.m., noises were heard coming from the residence, after which Sharon Bob was seen running out of the house with blood on her clothing. The deceased suspect reportedly chased behind her with a cutlass in his hand, telling her to come back into the house.
It happened around the arguing started about 12 because I get up to see if the son come. And when I get up, the son was there. I hear the arguing and I thought, was somebody get up arguing something else. Then they say, they start crying. When she start crying, then is when I know it's something serious. I alert people and everybody come out. But when we come over in the yard, he was about to chop her neck off. And we holler, on him. And we pick up a wood. It was me and my other brother. When we pick up the wood, he run. You understand? And then his brother called on him. He said, call his name. His bigger brother, or no, his second brother, follow him. And then he run inside. He said, come in and go in and put on a shirt. And after then, nobody never know what happened after that.
The injured woman then raised an alarm saying her husband chopped her son. She was rushed to the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation and admitted with chop wounds to her neck and hand and burn marks about her body. Her condition is listed as stable in the burn unit, suffering from first-degree burns. Police ranks who responded to the scene found Sion Bob lying motionless on a mattress with a gasping wound to his left side neck. Leon Bob was subsequently found lying on a blood-soaked bed in the room with a large wound to his abdomen. The 57-year-old man was being transported to the Georgetown Public Hospital for treatment but died on his way. The bodies are presently at the hospital's mortuary awaiting post-mortem examinations. A blood-stained knife and cutlass were found under the bed on which Leon Bob was found. The Justice Education Society, in collaboration with the Canadian government and the Ministry of Home Affairs, on Tuesday launched their Strengthening Justice for Women, Girls and Indigenous Peoples in Guyana project. The project is geared towards promoting equal access to justice for these groups and empower them to be less vulnerable to violence. It will focus on upskilling justice actors in responding to issues related to sexual and gender-based violence, targeting women and girls. Moreover, the project will endeavor to build the capacity of Indigenous women and leaders in remote communities where there is inadequate access to justice. The overall aim is to reduce the level of liberty for severe violence against women while improving access to justice for these vulnerable groups. The primary beneficiaries of the project are estimated at over 10,000 women and girls living in Indigenous communities in the hinterland. In delivering brief remarks, Home Affairs Minister Rubinson Ben emphasized the importance of developing safe space to foster self-sufficiency and success among women, girls, and Indigenous people.
Take together those two cohorts, the women and the girls, and the indigenous people, perhaps together, have the most precarious lives in Guyana at the moment. It is an ongoing struggle and a work in progress to bring us at a point where we can all feel safe in the society in totality with respect to how we relate to women and girls, make them safe, but also particularly to pay more attention to the life and circumstances of our American peoples.
Minister Ben also highlighted the need for greater empathy, representation, and appreciation for women, girls, and Indigenous peoples. Canadian High Commissioner to Guyana, Mark Brennan, stated that equal access to justice is necessary for inclusive governance.
True equality will not be possible until everyone, regardless of their place in society, is able to access full and equal protection under the law.
The launch was held at the Guyana. Mrs. Beverly Critchlow has been appointed Assistant Chief Elections Officer by the Guyana Elections Commission during its statutory meeting on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. A press statement from GCOM earlier today confirmed the appointment of Mrs. Critchlow while highlighting that the appointment emanated from a transparent process that involved all the members of the Commission. That is, one in which all commissioners were availed of the opportunity to interview all of the shortlisted candidates and thereafter indicates their respective choice to fill the position. GCOM further stated that, in this regard, having heard the submissions of all of the 6 commissioners relative to the candidates of their respective choice for the position of Assistant Chief Elections Officer, Justice of Appeal retired Claudette Singh, chairperson of the Commission, concluded that Mrs. Critchlow's qualifications and experience, as well as her institutional knowledge, placed her at an advantage above the other candidates. The newly appointed ACEO was employed with GCOM for 20 years and acted in the position as ACEO on multiple occasions, and most recently being in 2017 to 2019. The experience she garnered made her eminently qualified for the post. Stick around after the break. Digicel donates $60 million to the Health Ministry to support autistic children, and canoe officers bust a New Amsterdam man with over $6 million worth in cannabis.
Guyana goes on show from September 16th to October 2nd for the first ever Cricket Carnival with an exciting lineup of parties, concerts, pageants, CPL cricket semis and finals, and Carnival Costumes Parade. Book your tickets now. For more information, log on to cricketcarnival592.com or our social media pages. Come and experience our people, our food, and culture from September 16th to October 2nd.
The sixer! That's the first of the night.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny? I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road, Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again. Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Sooner or later you will have another power failure. Are you prepared for the next blackout? Some essential equipment such as security cameras, lights, internet, gate motors, and water pumps may stop working. How can you prevent the next blackout? InverterTech has an affordable solution for you. A strong UPS system which uses the latest inverter and solar battery technology to prevent blackout. We smartly calculate your average power demand so you don't spend more than you need to. Call 223-2233 for more information.
When you need money and you gotta get it fast, Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop is the place for that confidential transaction in a quiet and secure location. You'll get the highest value per pennyweight for your gold, and also enjoy the lowest interest rates and longest payback period too. Yes, for that instant transaction to solve a pressing financial problem. That Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, 46 Boyle Place, that's between the Ministry of Housing on Brick Dam and White Castle Fish Shop. Be your first and only choice. Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, safe and sound, solid and secure, always there for you. Telephone 231-7878 and 223-8955.
Welcome back. Telecommunications company Digicel has committed some $60 million to the Ministry of Health, Disability and Rehabilitation Department. On Tuesday, the company inked the Memorandum of Understanding with the ministry, which will see over the next 3 years investment in training for professionals working with autistic children and the designing of a classroom for children with autism, among other interventions. Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health, Malcolm Watkins, thanked Digicel for the support and called for strengthening of the relationship. Additionally, on Tuesday, the Mohan Tanai Foundation and the Rotary Club of Georgetown donated 50 wheelchairs to the Ministry of Health to assist those persons in remote regions who lack access to wheelchairs. President of the Rotary Club, Sheldon Hazelwood, said after this need was highlighted, the two organizations decided to collaboratively extend assistance to the ministry. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony, while expressing gratitude to the two organizations, noted that over the past years, the ministry has been making dedicated efforts to acquire wheelchairs to satisfy this need. He further noted that these 50 wheelchairs would come in handy, especially in the interior communities. Further, the Health Ministry also benefited from a donation of radiological equipment from the International Atomic Energy Agency. Officers of the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit conducted an operations at Patrick Dam, Angois Avenue, New Amsterdam, Berbice, where they arrested a male with over 3.5 kilograms of cannabis in his possession on Tuesday, September 20th. The man, 29-year-old Andrew Samuel Silly of Angois Avenue, New Amsterdam, Berbice, was carrying a bag at the time. A subsequent search of the bag revealed 5 black plastic bags containing suspected narcotics. Silly was arrested and escorted to Kanu headquarters with the suspected narcotics. It was tested positive for cannabis with a total weight of 3.930 kilograms and a street value of approximately 3.5 million Guyana dollars. Investigations are ongoing. Meanwhile, the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit reminds the general public to be aware of illegal activities occurring in and around the communities and not to be hesitant to report them to law enforcement. Don't go away after the break. South Africa protests, union marches in Pretoria for higher wages, and United Nations General Assembly. Russia's invasion of Ukraine dominates summit.
When you need money and you gotta get it fast, Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop is the place for that confidential transaction in a quiet and secure location. You'll get the highest value per pennyweight for your gold and also enjoy the lowest interest rates and longest payback period too. Yes, for that instant transaction to solve a pressing financial problem. That Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, 46 Boyle Place, that's between the Ministry of Housing on Brick Dam and White Castle Fish Shop. Be your first and only choice. Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, safe and sound, solid and secure, always there for you. Telephone 231-7878 and 223-8955.
Sooner or later you will have another power failure. Are you prepared for the next blackout? Some essential equipment such as security cameras, lights, internet, gate motors, and water pumps may stop working. How can you prevent the next blackout? InverterTech has an affordable solution for you. A strong UPS system which uses the latest inverter and solar battery technology to prevent blackout. We smartly calculate your average power demand so you don't spend more than you need to. Call 223-2233 for more information.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lenders, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Hey yo, GT Massive, this is Double M. All I hear me out right now is all about the Marshall Super Concert, October 1st. Right here is Cricket It's carnival, it's soca in Guyana. Hey, ha!
Welcome back. Now let's take a look at what's happening in the region and around the world. Hurricane Fiona has slammed into the Caribbean archipelago as a Category 3 storm in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. 4 people died and it wrecked crops and houses. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says Fiona is expected to worsen in the coming days. Al Jazeera's Manuel Rapado reports.
Hurricane Fiona bears down on Turks and Caicos Islands, making landfall as a powerful Category 3 storm, threatening to devastate the tiny Caribbean archipelago. In the Dominican Republic, crops have been destroyed and houses damaged by the first major hurricane of the Atlantic season.
All this area does farming, and it depends on production, on the crops, and everything was destroyed. There was nothing left. A lot of people had loans to grow bananas, coffee, cocoa. Everything is gone.
Hundreds were forced from their homes by widespread flooding in Puerto Rico. Among them, Adalberto Rios and his daughter Marta, who are now staying at a shelter with other displaced people.
My faith is strong and I know God will help me. I lost everything, but if God took everything away, it's only because He has something better planned for me.
In the wake of the storm, U.S. federal officials have promised to increase aid and support to Puerto Rico.
Hundreds of FEMA and federal responders are on the ground in Puerto Rico, including U.S. Army Corps of Engineer, power restoration experts, and urban search and rescue teams.
Heavy rains from Fiona caused flooding across the U.S. island territory, leading to damaged roads and collapsed bridges.
Here in southern Puerto Rico, tens of thousands of residents are depending on construction crews like this one to restore running water to just some of the communities worst affected by Hurricane Fiona.
The U.S. National Hurricane Center is warning Fiona will continue to gain strength over the coming days. Manuel Rapalo, Al Jazeera, San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Internationally, hundreds of police and prison officers are on strike in South Africa, demanding higher pay. With inflation at a 13-year high, they say their salaries are no longer enough to put food on the table. Al Jazeera's Harun Matassa reports.
In some other countries, it's rare to see police and prison officials protesting. They are considered an essential service. But unions in South Africa say they want to pressure the government into addressing the rising cost of living.
So you have workers that are slavering on a day-to-day basis, selling their labor, and at the end of the day, there's nothing that they're able to put at the table to take care of their families.
Workers have rejected a 3% wage increase, saying it's not enough to help them cope higher food and fuel prices.
The World Bank considers South Africa one of the most unequal countries in the world. Many people here are finding it hard to make ends meet. The economy doesn't seem to be improving, and more unions are threatening to go on strike in the coming weeks.
South Africa's crippling power cuts are also fueling public frustration. Electricity can go off for hours a day here, reducing business productivity, which could lead to job losses.
With the very high levels of unemployment that we experience in South Africa in the moment, especially if we're looking at around the 36% mark, we're looking at economic growth at like 0.7% economic growth. We do not have enough growth to actually be driving the South African economy the way we need in order to not only reduce that unemployment, but be able to create sufficient, shall we say, jobs or lifestyles for people to be able to survive.
Moloko Mokubedi managed to make a few dollars selling food to some of the demonstrators. She understands why people are angry.
I can't afford rent. My kids are at school. There are days I feel hopeless here.
President Cyril Ramaphosa is not attending this week's UN General Assembly meeting in New York, saying he's going to tackle the electricity crisis and other challenges facing the country. It seems Africa's most industrialized economy is in trouble as more and more South Africans grow increasingly frustrated. Harun Matassa, Al Jazeera, Pretoria.
And finally, The Ukraine war dominates speeches on day one of the United Nations General Assembly. Russia was accused of a return to imperialism by a number of Western countries. Al Jazeera's James Bay reports.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our world is in big trouble.
The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres setting a grim tone for this meeting. Among the many conflicts in the world that continue to rage, one, the war in Ukraine, will dominate proceedings this week. And as the meeting was taking place, news was confirmed that in the Ukrainian provinces of Luhansk and Donetsk, votes within days will take place on whether to become part of Russia. This was the reaction of the US ambassador to the UN.
They will not be recognized by anyone in the international community. They were not recognized in 2014, and it will not be recognized this time around. It is illegal annexation of another country's territory.
NATO's Secretary-General told me he believes Russia may be acting now because of the losses it suffered during the recent Ukrainian offensive.
Such referenda have no legitimacy because they are shame referendums, and they will not change the nature of the war. This remains a war of aggression against Ukraine, and it represents an escalation. Because if suddenly these territories which are part of Ukraine are declared as part of Russia, that will further escalate the conflict.
The General Assembly heard from two leaders who've maintained a dialogue with President Putin throughout the war. The President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, helped negotiate a deal to export the grain from Ukraine. He says there now needs to be a dignified end to the war. President Emmanuel Macron of France, in an impassioned speech, was much tougher on Russia.
As I am speaking to you now, there are Russian troops in Ukraine, but as far as I know, there are no Ukrainian troops in Russia. That's a fact, and we all have to recognize that. The longer this war goes on for, the more it threatens peace in Europe and the entire world. It leads to a wider, permanent conflict, where the sovereignty and security of everyone will only depend on power. What we have been witnessing since February 24th is a return to imperialism and colonialism.
Ukraine is expected to be one of the focuses of President Biden's speech to the General Assembly on Wednesday. There's also a speech delivered by video by President Zelensky, and on Thursday, a meeting of the UN Security Council at foreign minister level, again on Ukraine. James Bays, Al Jazeera at the United Nations.
And that is it for today's regional and international news. Here now is your 3-minute forecast. Of this edition of Channel 2's Headline News Update. Tune in on Thursday 7 p.m. for another episode. Be sure to subscribe, like and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Until then, please take care of yourself and each other.